Argentina has been hitting headlines recently due to its economic and political turmoil. Last week, a 24-hour general strike in Buenos Aires disrupted public transport, including shutting down airlines and ports on Wednesday. Today I'm joined by Carlos Pallordet, senior economist at Timetric in London. Carlos, this is the latest demonstration against the president amid widespread protests against rising inflation, increasing crime and repeated government corruption scandals. Can you tell me more about Argentina's economic woes and political problems?
Well, to begin with, the government is undergoing a lot of pressure lately from street protests. But it's important to mark that these were two protests that were different in nature. The 8th of November protest and following a September protest was more of an spontaneous and an horizontal movement, middle-class based, where the concerns were disapproval of the government's handling of the economy, faltering economic activity, high inflation, and so on. Whereas the union strike that the government suffered last week, although it's true that inflation has undermined salaries, and this is one of the reasons, it has more of a political motivation, and it was driven by Hugo Moyano, who's a union leader that until recently was an ally of this government, and so at this point it looks more as a power demonstration than anything else. Having said this, I think the reaction of the government to the protests have not been positive. It has disqualified them, it has ignored them, and this obviously doesn't bode well for future conflict.
Argentina is preparing an appeal for the US court in regards to the $1.3 billion debt order. What are your thoughts on this?
Following this controversial decision from Judge Griesa, now Argentina has been ordered not only to pay 100% of the capital and interest to the holdout, but it also has been ruled that it cannot pay exchange bond holders in New York until it deposits this claim, which is $1.3 billion in an escrow account. Now, this, as you know, places Argentina in front of two options. And if it decides to pay in the money and then loses the appeal, of course, the risk is that it will be providing an excessive unfair payment to holdouts. But not only that, holders of the rest of the $6.6 billion who are unchanged will also be filing claims. There's also a risk that the people that enter the exchange can also file claims. So that's a big problem. Now, the other option, if it doesn't pay in this money, of course, its legal position is weakened. It is confirmed that it is not willing to abide to the law. And, of course, a technical default is almost certain. Even if Argentina decides to pay bondholders outside the U.S., if it decides to change the location of payment, it is also a very risky move because it requires 75% of approval of the people that have already exchanged the debt, and so this is also very risky. So I think the situation is very complicated. So far, what the government has done, a bit too late in my opinion, is cutting down its anti-Balta rhetoric, and I think my guess is that it will pay in the escrow, and it will have to go further and propose an alternative formula to pay holdouts. Now, this, of course, will increase the chances of avoiding a default now, but it's not a solution for the long term.
Last Wednesday night, Argentina's lower house of Congress approved a sweeping capital markets reform bill with the objective to channel more private savings to fund businesses and infrastructure projects. Do you think this bill will be successful?
No, actually not. I think it will not be successful, and I think the main purpose of that bill is actually to have a more clear control and discretionality or corporate decisions rather than probably channeling savings into funding business and infrastructure projects. So I think that was a bad move. Although, of course, the spirit of the law is not wrong. It speaks about demutualization, about concentrating the market and opening it up. I think the purpose is different.
And now let's look at growth. What is your forecast for annual GDP growth in Argentina for 2013?
Well, there's been a rebound of activity in the last quarter, and consumption still is showing a resilience to the economic cycle. So I think there are chances that Argentina can grow closer to 2.5% next year up from 1.5% this year. But obviously the driver there would have to be Brazil getting back into a growth path, and of course a favorable, or at least a not very nocive solution to this photo.
Carlos, do you think the government's state-centric economic policies are scaring away investors?
I think the economic policies the government has adopted are basically a very heterodox approach, and probably will not bode well for Argentina's economic prospects in the medium term. Definitely, Argentina is facing a rough path for the next 2-3 years.
And finally, how is the Argentinian currency performing right now?
Argentina, as you know, has placed very strict restrictions and controls on the purchase of foreign exchange. So there is a black market with a gap of 35%. My view is that the official exchange rate we will start seeing an acceleration of a depreciation rate of that exchange rate in order to catch up with the unregulated and unofficial exchange rate. I can't say exactly a number, but probably it will be over 10% next year.
Thank you, Carlos, for sharing your expertise with us today. If you enjoyed this interview, then do stay tuned to listen to more like it. Enjoy the rest of your day.